how to handle an impaired nurse. That's really touchy situation. It happens. It does. Not just nurses. It happens everywhere. Look for the signs. What are some of the signs and symptoms of this person? And we'll talk about that in class. Signs and symptoms in the person and at work. I mean, absenteeism, behavior changes, mood swings, hygiene issues. These are all things that could be impairment. It could be other things too. This is why it's a very touchy situation, because until you really know what's going on, you have no idea what's going on. You only have assumptions. And acting on assumptions is always a bad thing. So watch for signs and symptoms, but don't make any judgment. All you're doing is gathering data. So there are ways of handling this. You could ignore it. Sure. Nobody's gotten hurt yet. We're just going to, we're okay. Well, the key word in that phrase is yet, right? You can cover it up, or somebody can cover up. And of course, you know what happens with the cover-ups. It always gets uncovered at some point. The forced resignation or geographic cure, I like that. That's just telling them that they need to quit, and then they go work somewhere else. Is the problem solved? No, it's just no longer your problem. That sounds easiest. It sounds nicest for the employee, but really it isn't benefiting anybody. You can report observations to the supervisor, HR, the employee assistance program. If you're the nurse, the observations will also be reported to the Wisconsin Board of Nursing. But here's the thing. Help the person get treatment. An addiction is an illness. It truly is. And you want that person to stay. You want your employees to stay. You want them to stay safe, healthy, and proper. But sometimes you have to get them that way. If you had a person who developed pneumonia and they were coming into work with a fever of 104 and they're coughing, are you going to fire them? No. You're going to make sure they go to see the doctor and get medication and come back when they're safe. Right? The person is profoundly depressed. Are you going to fire them? Because they're going to have pretty much all the same symptoms as an impaired nurse. In fact, they are impaired. But are you going to fire them because they're depressed? You better not. But you're going to help them get help. The The employee assistance program that's what that's for. So you'll never cover things up, and the goal is to help the person. But the initial intervention could get ugly. It really is. If the person does have a problem, it's not going to be pretty. You need data, and you have to have a plan. Don't just wing it. And don't do it alone. Never alone. Usually 2 or more need to talk to the person. And yeah, that's going to feel like they're being ganged up on, and the reality is they're being ganged up on. But it also helps the person who's initiating the intervention feel support. If you've ever been involved with this, it is about one of the most uncomfortable things you can imagine. Nobody wants it. But if you can have people with you saying that, yes, we agree, we see this too, it helps the person starting the intervention. It actually helps the person receiving it. They may not agree with it at first. They may not even acknowledge that what you're saying is right. But when they progress toward treatment and health, they will acknowledge that it helps to have more than one person say it. Make sure everybody understands the consequences, the bottom line. Don't moralize, you shouldn't do this, or how could you be so weak? That doesn't help. Don't sympathize, compromise, or accept lies. Focus on the issue. They're drinking, they're using drugs, whatever the issue is. Let them tell their story though. Always let them have their side. That does not mean you're necessarily going to believe it, but you need to let them say their piece. Make sure you have a plan. It might be you have child care set up for somebody, or a replacement worker pull up. Check their benefits and comp time. Do they have health care benefits? Do they have enough PTO where they can take time off? Plan an appointment for treatment. Someone needs to accompany the nurse after the intervention. That may be accompanying them out of the building, maybe accompanying them to HR, wherever, but don't just say, go find yourself to HR, because it might not happen. Document the intervention and debrief everybody involved. Make sure everybody understands what the next step is. And then follow up on treatment or consequences. You'll need a treatment plan before they can return to work. It needs to be a contract. Identify any practice limitations. If they've been misappropriating drugs, you probably won't have them working with drugs anymore, at least for a while. You may want to mandate support group attendance or specific attendance. Very likely there'll be drug and alcohol screening agreement. When I worked in the ER, I would occasionally need to collect a urine sample for people for random drug tests that were back to work on a treatment plan. Yes, it's really embarrassing to test a coworker for drugs. On the other hand, it's better than firing them. And they come back. And usually these people know what went wrong. They don't want that. Remember, an addiction is an illness. Nobody wants to become addicted. Nobody wants to have a toxic relationship with alcohol and drugs. No, nobody wants that. So if we help them get better and come back to work, even with limitations, we are validating them as a person. We're saying, it isn't you, it's the disease. Just like it's the pneumonia or the depression or diabetes. It's the disease. We're going to help you get healthy. Now, in performance appraisals, these are always fun. Sometimes you do your own performance appraisal, sometimes a manager does it. But ideally, you want to have an overall view of performance. We want to pinpoint areas of growth or improvement. Yes, we all have areas of improvement. But we need to know. If you don't know what's going wrong, how can you get better? And this also gives the manager an idea of strengths and weaknesses, because everybody has strengths also. So in the performance appraisal, we want to make sure that there's a job description, standards that everybody understands. If the person doesn't know what the standards are, how can you realistically hold them to those standards? You can't. Make sure everybody understands policies and procedures. And if there's a union, you have to follow the contract rules. We talked about that in the politics lecture. Who does the performance appraisal? Is it the department head? Is it the immediate supervisor? Is it a self-evaluation? Those are something very awkward. Is it peers? Those are really awkward. Personally, I don't trust peer evaluations. Generally, the ones where I've had to do it is you pick two people to provide you a peer evaluation that, of course, you as the evaluatee person won't see. But realistically, are you going to pick people that are going to criticize you? No, you're going to pick your buddies, your teammates, your friends. And they're probably going to give you a pretty good review. Just like when they pick you, you're going to give them a pretty good review. So peer reviews should be part of the process, but not the sole process. And I have been in situations where they were the sole evaluation process. We need to look at the types of errors that are happening. Recency errors, central tendency, halo, and leniency. Recency error looks at what just happened. So if you had a meta error yesterday, I'm going to forget everything else. It's just yesterday that is clouding my judgment. Central tendency error. This is why our evaluations, the clinical evaluations, do not have 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Because if we did, the central tendency error would be 3s. Not good, not bad, just 3s. That's human nature, to go right down the middle, because it's non-aggressive, it's non-threatening, it's not committing yourself to anything, so it also doesn't help. Halo error is a person who does something really good all the time and they do something else wrong. Well, but they're a good person, so I'm going to ignore that error. And a leniency error is just grading everybody, oh, well, they're okay. It's okay. It's not a big deal. We'll get over that. That doesn't help anybody grow either. Evaluation forms could be trait-based or behavior-oriented. I prefer behavior-oriented because we can work on those. So key behaviors for performance: ask for self-evaluation and give your evaluation of performance. What would help maintain? Ask the person, what would help you improve your performance? Ask how the improvement can be achieved. Who, what, and when is going to happen on the plan, and then summarize. Get commitment and set up a second review. The basics of supervision right there. And that's it for Learning Plan 8.